Hello, my name is Mrs. Sturgis. I've been working with the Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation for many years. I especially enjoy introducing students to architectural landmarks in the Pittsburgh area. The Fort Pitt Block House is the fourth stop on our virtual tour, Building Pride, Building Character, created by the Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation. The Block House is located in what is now Point State Park in downtown Pittsburgh. Made of stone, timber, and brick, the Block House is the oldest building in the city of Pittsburgh, and it's a National Historic Landmark. Our goal with this virtual tour is to help tell the story of Pittsburgh by visiting architectural landmarks that are still part of the life of our city. We associate each landmark with character building words and encourage you to develop those character building words within yourself. The three character building words we associate with the Fort Pitt Block House are adaptable, caring, and survivor. The Block House is a survivor. It's more than 255 years young. It has survived because it's been adaptable, able to adjust to new conditions, and because it's been cared for by an organization of women. Now, think about these three character building words in terms of your own life. Are you an adaptable person? Are you a caring person? You are a survivor. An adaptable person is someone who is willing in certain situations to change, to be flexible. A caring person watches over, protects, and is concerned about something or someone. A survivor stays alive, usually by making good decisions, and sometimes in spite of dangerous occurrences or situations. Please raise your hand if you are an adaptable person, if you are a caring person. And everyone raise your hand because you're survivors. Let's go inside the Fort Pitt Block House to meet Susan Matlack, Regent of the Pittsburgh Chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution. She will tell us more about the Block House. Follow me.
The Fort Pitt Block House is Pittsburgh's oldest architectural landmark. It was built in 1764 by Colonel Henry Bouquet. The Block House is one of 5 redoubts. So these were protectors of the actual fort itself. So the 5 blockhouses sat outside the fence line of Fort Pitt in order to protect it from any advancing people, whether they were Native Americans or any others in the area that wanted to attack the fort. Why did this one survive and the other 4 did not? After Fort Pitt was decommissioned in 1792, so after the Revolutionary War, there were people living in the block house, this one. The other 4 were torn down because the wood and the bricks were needed to build what is now modern-day Pittsburgh. So because there were people living in this block house, it has survived over 250 years. The block house was home to more than one family. There would be a family living on the first floor and a family living on the second floor. There were exterior stairs at one point attached to the block house, so that family did not have to come in to the first floor to get to their house or to get to the upstairs. There were also windows added to the block house once it was no longer part of Fort Pitt. One of the ladies who lived in the block house, now she lived on the first floor, and her name was Sibby Powers. Sibby Powers sold candy and fruit and little cakes from her window. Sibby was a big believer in good luck and any good luck symbols. So you'll see in the block house that we do have horseshoes hanging in the block house that Sibby herself hung when she lived here. And we've kept them up for all these years because it's part of the history of the block house. So as we're preserving history of the block house from when it was constructed in 1764 to present day, it's all part of the great story of the block house. How did the block house become what it is today? And why is it private property when it does in fact sit inside of a state park in the middle of a major city in the United States? Well, we need to go back more than 100 years to when the block house was really under siege, but not from attack by people. But if you look, the early railroad came through here. The block house was sort of being swallowed up by really what was modern industry at the time. So in order to protect the block house, the Pittsburgh Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, went to Mary Shenley, who owned all of this land. So Mary Shenley owned all the land on which the block house sat, all the way out to what is Penn Avenue as we know it today. So the daughters went to Mary and asked her if she would give it to them. They had asked her a few times. Lots of people had asked Mary for the block house. Mary always said no. This one time, though, Mary gave in, and Mary gave the block house, deeded it officially to the Pittsburgh Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, with stipulations. One of the stipulations, and it's a big one, was that the block house needed to be restored to the way it was when it was part of Fort Pitt. So what does that mean? Well, people were living in the block house. They weren't living in the block house when it was part of the fort. So that was the first major endeavor that we needed to get the residents out. But that wasn't the biggest threat. The biggest threat actually came from the Pennsylvania Railroad Syndicate. Why? Because they wanted the block house out of the way to bring the rest of the railroad through the area. The block house was impeding their progress. Henry Clay Frick decided he wanted the block house out of the way. So he offered the Daughters of the American Revolution $25,000 to move the block house to what is now modern-day Shenley Park. $25,000 more than 100 years ago was an awful lot of money. The daughters said no. They said no to $25,000, and they also said no to Henry Clay Frick. That wasn't something common. Why? Because these were women who didn't work. These were women who, some may have had educations, most of them didn't. But what they had was enough guts to say no, because they also didn't do what? They didn't even have the right to vote. Undeterred, these ladies decided history needed to be on their side. So over several years, the Daughters of the American Revolution, in particular one woman, Edith Darlington Ammon, decided we weren't going to stand for this. So these early leaders of Pittsburgh, these early women of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and in particular the Pittsburgh Chapter, went up against Henry Clay Frick and a whole lot of money. After many court battles, wins and losses on both sides admittedly, the court fight went all the way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And the Pennsylvania Supreme Court sided with the daughters. And because of Edith Darlington Ammon and that court battle, what we see here in the block house is still here today. Protecting the block house became exactly what we hoped it would be. It was protected. So to Edith Darlington Ammon from the Pittsburgh Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, and also with Michael Kennedy, who was the state representative, who also took up the cause with Edith Darlington Ammon, we are able to showcase the block house to everyone today. Since 1895, the block house has been open to the public free of charge as a museum. The block house is the oldest museum in the city of Pittsburgh. We typically are open to welcome you here so you can check it out yourself, Wednesday through Saturday between about 10:30 and 4:30. And that's all year round. So please come and visit the block house. Now, let's talk about the importance of preserving and saving history. And I want to share this with you because it's important. Have you no history? Have you no pride? Men who allow this precious spot to be sacrificed certainly have no pride at all. If these historic sites are destroyed, nothing but written pages will be left behind to tell their memory. Future generations will want to see them. We should not deny them the opportunity, and that's why we protect the block house. We often get asked, since there's really no threat of human attack, at least we hope not, against the block house, do we worry about it at all? Of course, it's Pittsburgh's oldest landmark. But what's the worry? The worry actually is Mother Nature. So the threats are no longer from attack, they're threats of weather. We have throughout the block house, and you'll see them on the walls, various years marked, and those years are marking floods of how high floodwater got in the blockhouse. So let's talk about some of the really cool characteristics of the Fort Pitt Block House. It is 80% original. The walls, the stone walls, are actually 2 feet thick, believe it or not. The wood, so the darker woods that you see, especially around the gun loops, where the soldiers from Fort Pitt would come into the blockhouse if they thought the fort was under attack, and that is where they would aim their muskets through the gun loops so that they could fire upon anyone trying to advance on the fort. The gun loops are actually made of white oak. White oak is typically termite-free. So while, yes, it will show age because it's out in the elements and weather will get to it, it does not have an issue with termites. With it being 80% original, we have replaced some of the roof. The gun loops have been reinforced over the years. We've had a process several years ago where they did actually x-ray the gun loops, just as if you had broken a bone and they take an x-ray of you, they x-rayed the gun loops to see their stability and to do anything necessary to reinforce the structure so that it is here for all to see and enjoy. So how can you help us? Well, 2 big ways. When you're older, so high school students, college students, and older, you're welcome to come down and volunteer your time. If you would like to get involved in volunteering at the Blockhouse, we would love to have you. And of course, because we are open to the public free of charge, we will always take donations of any size.
Perhaps you'll choose to be like the Blockhouse, adaptable, caring, and a survivor. Several students from Pittsburgh West Liberty described why they wanted to be like the Fort Pitt Block House. Please listen to what they wrote in this book we published. I am choosing to write about the Fort Pitt Block House because I am interested in history. I also like that it is made of brick, stone, and timber, and has been protected. I am choosing the words survivor and adaptable as traits I have or would like to have because I want to live for a very long time. I want to survive past 100. I want to be adaptable in school so I can get the Pittsburgh Promise. I want to be like the Fort Pitt Block House because I want to be protected and to survive. Another student said, my favorite thing we did was seeing how high the floods were in the Fort Pitt Block House because I liked seeing what year they were because I had never heard of them. The Block House is a survivor. I want to be a survivor too. And one more student wrote, I would like to be more caring because I think if I am nice and caring, I can make new friends, and I would like that. Also, I like being caring to others because I feel like I'm doing something good. I also would like to be adaptable because sometimes I really do not feel comfortable with myself, so I would like to try to change. These 2 words help me understand what I would like to do. Therefore, my favorite place was the Fort Pitt Block House because it's so amazing. Just think how many stories came from the Block House. I think it is very fascinating. It was the best. When you visit the Block House with your family, be sure to explore Point State Park. Look for signs to read so you can learn more about the Forks of the Ohio National Historic Landmark at Point State Park. A tall sign at the entrance announces that this is a place of consequence. Important events happened here. As you walk into the park, you'll find the outline of Fort Pitt. Follow that. Once over the Portal Bridge and the reflecting pool, you'll find several markers near the 5-sided Fort Pitt Block House. The largest honors Edith Darlington Ammon, who led the fight to save the Block House. The smallest marker celebrates the Building Pride, Building Character partnership that my organization has with the Pittsburgh Public Schools. You'll see the initials PHLF for Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation and PPS for Pittsburgh Public Schools, along with the words building pride, building character. You'll see a plaque listing the years 1753, 1758, and 1770 when George Washington was here in this area. And you'll see a plaque for the Venango Path that George Washington followed as he journeyed with his Native American guides to a French fort near Lake Erie. In the Great Lawn, you'll see the outline in stone of the French Fort Duquesne and a bronze medallion in the center. Another stone outlines the original shoreline of the three rivers. Did you know that more land was added when the fountain was created? The fountain is a symbol of Pittsburgh's strength. It reminds us of the confluence of the Allegheny, Monongahela, and Ohio rivers, and also of the importance of water in everyone's life. Point State Park opened in 1974 when the fountain was dedicated. At the very tip of the point are a series of images and one more marker to find. They describe the land in the forks of the Ohio River as a point of confluence, conflict, and renewal, a place of international significance. It's a wonderful feeling to stand near the tip of the point and look west down the Ohio River past the West End Bridge, south to the Duquesne Incline and Mount Washington, north to Heinz Field, the Carnegie Science Center, and the North Side neighborhoods, and east back to downtown Pittsburgh and beyond. Wherever you are, look for the details that give our city character and build character within yourself. Building pride, building character, that's the point. Please keep learning about and caring about Pittsburgh. Thanks for watching.